Hello students, this video lecture is about data structure. So this video contains the very basic fundamental, or you can say introduction part of data structure. So first we consider the word data, right? So some person might get confused between data and information. So we are having two words, data and information. So what are the difference between this data and information? So for example, if I am having any numbers, for example, I am having this number 1, then I am having something like Kaya, and I am having this 75. So it doesn't make any sense, right? That means I am having only few amount of something. So that is data, right? Raw information. I can say this data is my raw information, right? And when that data gets some meaning, that means I can say that meaningful data becomes information, right? So data, that is the raw part of your information, and when we provide any meaning to that data, that becomes information, right? So if I say that if I write some sentence that some person named Kaya is having a roll number 1 and getting 75% in his graduation, right? So that makes some sense, right? So that is known as information, right? So data that is raw. So when I process this data is processed, right? And when I process this data, it will become information, right? So this is the basic difference between data and information, right? So especially in this lecture, in entire data structure, we are going to deal with the data, not with the information. We have to deal with the data only, right? So data means raw numbers, raw facts, figures, anything. It is not compulsory that it should be numbers only. It can be character, it can be string, it can be any image, anything, but that is that some figure, facts, anything, but that is raw, right? Not processed, unprocessed, right? So that is called as data. And data structure, that means we can say that is a group of data elements. This data elements we are having, so that collection of data elements, right? That is specially used for organizing and storing, right? We need to store this data in a particular structure, right? Whenever we store a data, that data is stored in a particular structure, that is known as data structure, right? So in a simple way, you can say that data structure is a systematic way of organizing and accessing that data, right? Whenever we store that data, so that storing along with that organizing this thing and accessing it very efficiently, right? So that is the that is called as data structure, right? Now what are the basic goals of data structure? So if we consider the basic goal of data structure, so first goal is correctness, right? Correctness means what? Whenever I use any kind of data structure, or I create any data structure for any particular program, or I can say for any software, right? So it should be correct. Means what? For each and every input, any user can provide any kind of input, right? So for each and every kind of input, it should work correctly. That means it should not generate any error, right? So that is correctness. That is the first goal of data structure. Then the second one is efficiency. Efficiency means what? Whenever any algorithm is created for a particular program or a particular software, right? So one must think that my algorithm should be efficient. Efficient means what? It should take less amount of resources to produce exact output, right? Sometimes we have two algorithms for the same process, right, for the execution of the same program. So which algorithm we choose? We choose the algorithm that is more efficient than the other, right? So that efficiency is the second part of data structure. Then we are having robustness. Now what robustness means? That means sometimes it happens that there might be error. First is correctness. That means it should be error free. But it may happen that there is some error. There will some error, right? So robustness means what? Your program or your algorithm or whatever data structure you are using, that should be able to recover from that particular error, right? So that is called as robustness, right? For example, you create a program for integer data, right? And it might be possible that some user gave floating data, right? So there is an error, there will be an error, right? So at that point of time, your program should not blow up, right? It should have the capability to recover from that. That is known as robustness, right? Then we are having the adaptability. Adaptability means what? If you see that day by day, we are having innovations and all that things, right? We are getting higher versions of everything. If we work with the software, if we work with the hardware also, then we are having the we are having the hardware with the more efficiency, or we can say that more speed is provided, RAM is upgraded and all that thing. So with the updated version of any hardware, or we can say any other plugins, or your software or your data structure should be able to adapt that change. Whatever change is there, it should be able to adapt that change, and then it should work properly in that changing environment, right? And then last, that is reusability. That means whatever you are using, it should be reusable. Because if you are doing it for a one person only, or for a one product only, so that is not feasible, right? So it should be reusable, so you can use it everywhere, right? So these are the 5 goals that we are having for the data structure. Then if we move forward, that we are having the applications of data structure, right? Now data structure is widely used. It is used everywhere. Wherever there is a data, you need data structure, right? But some of the widely used areas, like for designing a compiler design, for numerical analysis, we can use this data structure. For statistical analysis, for OS, for DBMS, for artificial intelligence, for simulators, graphics and many more. These are some names only, right? But you can use data structure everywhere, because there is a data, you need to arrange it, you need to organize it, and for organizing data you need data structure, right? So this is the application of data structure. If we move forward, if we see this, okay, I have to tilt it. So if we see this, this is the types of data structure we are having, right? So if we think about, right, first there are basically 2 types of data structure. So first, that is a primitive data structure, and second one, that is a non-primitive data structure. Now what primitive data structure means? Primitive data structure, that means that kind of data structure that are readily available in my programming language, right? If I am using any kind of programming language, it is already available, so there is no need to define it. We need not to worry about what should be its representation, how many sizes it will take. It's already stored, it already available, right? So we have to use it only, right? There is no need of defining these things, right? So readily available in programming language, that kind of data structure are known as primitive data structure. In that we are having integer, float, character, pointers, right? This kind of things are known as primitive data structure. If we talk about non-primitive data structure, so these things are not readily available. That means what? We need to create a data structure, right? We need to define what should be its size, how it will be represented, what is allowed, what is not allowed, right? So this all things we need to create it, right? So that is known as non-primitive data structure. In non-primitive data structure, again there is two parts. One that is a linear data structure and another one that is a non-linear data structure. So if we talk about linear data structure follows the sequential relation, right? Linear or sequential relation. That means what? That in a memory where the data is stored, it should be stored in a sequential manner. For example, my first data is stored at 1024 location. So next will be stored at 1025 or in a sequential manner, right? So this is known as linear data structure. Examples are array, stack, queue, linked list, likewise. And if we talk about non-linear data structure, that is not in a sequential manner. Yes, we are able to access it from one to another, but it is in a parent-child relationship. We can say hierarchical structure. So it will be in a parent-child relationship. An example for that is tree and graph. Now, if we talk about data structure, one word always comes in our mind, that is algorithm, right? It is always connected with data structure, right? So, algorithm, what is algorithm? As you know that algorithm is a step-by-step representation of a solution to a particular problem, right? Now, it is not compulsory that for a particular problem you are having only one solution. You can have multiple solutions, right? So, you can have different algorithms for a particular program, or you can say any problem, right? So, if we are having multiple algorithms, we need to choose amongst that which one is feasible one, right? So, for that we need to do the analysis of algorithm. Now, analysis of algorithm, there are two types of analysis. First one that is known as pre-analysis and the second one that is known as post-analysis, right? So if we talk about pre-analysis means what? If I consider that I want to create a program as a solution, right? So pre-analysis means what? Before implementing that program, some theoretical or mathematical calculation I need to do, right? Before writing the program, right? On the basis of algorithm only, right? This is totally, pre-analysis is totally based on algorithm, right? So on the basis of algorithm only we need to do some theoretical and mathematical calculation, and then we assume that this should be its like complexities, right? We are going to study what is complexity, right? So complexity, we find the complexity based on this, and for that we use asymptotic notations, right? This is known as pre-analysis. And what is post-analysis? Post-analysis means what? Post-analysis means once we have the algorithm, then we do the pre-analysis, then we assume that something complexity, something is like that, we are having using that asymptotic notations, right? After that we create a program and we implement it, and after the execution we do the actual implementation on the machines, right? So on different machines we check that particular program or a software. If you are making a software, then a software, right? And then we check whether it is working properly or not. So this post analysis, it depends on the OS, operating system, compiler, etc., right? There are many hardware things are there. So this is known as post analysis, and this one is pre-analysis, right? Now right now we are understanding the pre-analysis part. So in pre-analysis, what we are having, two terms we are having, that is space complexity and time complexity. So if I do that space complexity, if I ask you that what do you mean by space complexity, right? So space complexity means what? Amount of computer memory that is required during the program execution as a function of input size, right? So whatever amount your computer whatever amount of computer memory that is required by that program during that execution time, right, that is known as space complexity, right? And this is quite easy, space complexity. Now the next one is time complexity. Now as the name suggests, you must say that time complexity, that means time required by a program. Yes, you are correct. It's a running time of a program instruction as a function of time. But one thing you need to consider that is, it is not measured by calculating the time, right? We are not going to calculate the actual time, because we are having different systems, right? And different systems are having different speeds, right? So that speed may vary, right? So we are not going to count the time complexity based on the running time. We are going to calculate it based on the counting the key operations, right? Number of key operations we are going to count, and on the basis of that we are going to calculate the time complexity. For calculating the time complexity, we use asymptotic notations, that is big O, big theta, omega, right? Small o, small theta, that kind of notations, right? Now first we see how to calculate the steps, right? Asymptotic notation that you will be studying in when you study analysis of algorithm, right? That is a different part. So when you study analysis of algorithm, at that time you will be able to understand this asymptotic notation. Right now in this lecture we are going to study only how to find the key operation, number of steps, how to find it, right? So it is quite easy. Suppose I am having this function, here I have written the function, right? And I have to count the steps for it, right? So number of key operation means what? That operation that makes actual difference to my program, right? So initialization is not part of a key operation, right? But if we are assigning some value, so that makes a difference in our program, so that is a key operation, right? So here I am having this function, right? So this is a function name. So we are just initializing this function name, right? So this will be not counted as a key operation. Yes, function calling will be the key operation. Whenever we call the function, we call this add function in our main function. If we talk about C programming, right? So in C program, if I call this function, right? So that when this function is invoked, that statement would be count as a key operation, but this statement will not be count as a key operation. So I am writing it 0, then this bracket, so again I am writing it 0, right? Then I am having s is equal to 0. S is equal to 0 means I am assigning a value 0 to some variable s, right? So this is again my key operation. So I am writing 1 over here. This is my step. I am going to count this step, right? Now why 1? Because this step is executed only once, right? Whenever this function is called, right? So at a one time of function called, this s is equal to 0 is done, it will be executed only one time, right? Then I am having this statement, that is a for loop for I is equal to 1 to n do, right? Now you need to think that how many times this statement run, right? Now one can say it's quite easy, n times it will run. Yes, n time your for loop will run n time. That is correct. Your for loop will run n time, but this statement will run n plus 1 time. Now one can say how it will be run n plus 1 time. So for 1 to n, right, your loop is going to run. At that time, whatever condition we are having, we can have this condition 1 to n. So we are having that condition I is less than or equal to n, right? So that n times it will run correctly. For the n plus 1 time, that condition would be false, right? So for that also this statement is going to run, right? Suppose my I is equal to, my n is equal to, I am having 4, right? So for I is equal to 1 also this is going to run. That statement is correct. For I is equal to 2, that is also correct. For I is equal to 3, that is also correct. For I is equal to 4, that is also correct. But it will increment I to 5. So 5 is less than or equal to 4. That is not correct. So it will be out of the loop, right? But for that, the statements must have to run, right? So this will be run n plus 1 time, right? Then I am having this s is equal to s plus ai, that is a part of my for loop. If I have not applied that bracket, that means only one statement will be inside my for loop. So that is s is equal to s plus ai, right? Now how many times this statement will run? This statement is inside my for loop, so it will run n times, right? And then I am having return s. Now think twice. If this return s is inside my function, then it will run n times. But right now I have not applied bracket, that means only one statement is inside my for loop. So this is outside my for loop, right? This statement is outside my for loop, right? So it will run only one time. Now if I count this, so it is 1 plus n plus 1 plus n plus 1, so ultimately 2n plus 3, right? So this key operation, I can say it is t of 2n plus 3, right? This is the number of steps. I am just counting the number of steps, right? For counting the complexity, we have to deal with the asymptotic notation, that is a part of analysis of algorithm subject, right? But right now only we are going to find the key operations, right? If we take another example, so here I am having some like a function called add. I am having a, b, c, that is my matrix, right? M and n, that is my size of that particular matrices, right? Now I am having this loop, that is for I is equal to 1 to m do. Inside that loop I am having another loop, that is for j is equal to 1 to n do, and inside that loop I am having this addition of my matrices. So that is a c of ij, that is equal to a of ij plus b of ij, right? So it's just a simple function, right? So if we consider this first statement will run 0 time, this bracket will run 0 time. Now you are clear, this for loop, I am having this for loop, so it will run m plus 1 time, because it's I is equal to 1 to m, right? So for 1 it will be false, right? So it will be run m plus 1 time, right? Now here you need to think that this for loop is inside this for loop, right? So if you consider this entire statement as a x, so whatever inside my for loop, that will run m times, right? So I have written this m, right? And that x is again your for loop, right? So that for loop will run 1 to n, that means again it will run n plus 1 time. So that's why it is m into n plus 1 time, right? Now this statement c of ij is equal to a of ij plus b of ij. Now if you think about this statement, right? So first you need to consider this for loop, so it will run n times, but this entire block of statement will run m times, so it will be m n times, right? So if I count it, it will be m plus 1 plus m in bracket n plus 1 plus mn, so it will be m plus 1 plus mn plus m plus mn. So ultimately it's a 2m plus 2mn plus 1. So that is t of 2m plus 2mn plus 1, right? We are going to take one more example, that is counting the power function, right? If I want to apply algorithm for finding the power function, right, x raised to n, right? So if I want to do that, I am having this power xn, right? I have applied the assign the value 1 to my power variable, right? Then I am applying this loop for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n, I plus plus, right? Power is equal to power into x, right? Now this is a simple algorithm of computing x raised to n, and then ultimately outside my for loop I am printing power, that is whatever answer I am having. So this will be run 0 time, this bracket will be run 0 time, then I am having this power, this is assignment, so this assignment will be done 1 time, right? Now this statement will run n plus 1 time, because it's from 1 to n, so it will be run n plus 1 time. Then I am having the statement is inside my for loop, so it will be run n time, right? And at last I am printing this power, so that would be run 1 time. So I am summing up this thing, so 1 plus n plus 1 plus 1 plus n, right? So ultimately it's a 2n plus 3. So that is of 2n plus 3. Now these are the counting of steps, and whenever we do the analysis part, right, we consider the best case, worst case and average case. Ultimately it's a asymptotic notation, but whenever we count asymptotic notation, we need to consider the three cases: best case, worst case and average case, right? So best case means what? We are assuming that we are getting the answer in the first attempt, right? For example, we can take the example of searching operation, linear search. We can take that example. So if I am having a linear search means what? In that algorithm I am comparing whatever is given by user that I want to search for. I am comparing that element to each and every element of my list, or I can say array, right? So that comparison is done. So best case means what? I am getting that answer in my first attempt, very first attempt or a second attempt, right? That is my best case, right? Worst case means what? Either I am going to get the answer at the very last, or I'm not getting the answer, right? Whatever the user is searching for, that data is not available in my list, right? So that is, I can consider it as a worst case, or it will be available at the very last or a second last position, right? And then the average case, as its name suggests, average case, that is somewhat between best and worst case, right? That is average case, right? So this all analysis thing is going to be part of asymptotic notations. We represent it using asymptotic notation, and that is a part of analysis of algorithm thing, right? So I think you all are clear with this basic funda of data structure. So that's all in this lecture. In the next lecture we'll be going to study linear data structures, different types of linear data structure. So just go through this, it's quite easy, right? So these are the fundamental, or you can say introduction of data structure. Thank you.